Hello, everyone. I'd like to convene our school board meeting and start with our hearing on the repair reserve. Yes?
Okay. Thank you. Repair reserve is a required process we have to take place if we want to access money from the repair reserve. We have two reserves set up right now on the second slide. And pulling those up now. So two reserves that we have established are one that was established in 2009. It has $108,000 left in it right now. And the 2012 repair reserve, which has $461,000 in it. Next slide, we show how these funds. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. How the 2009 repair reserve is established. It's established by the Board of Education for the purpose of funding the capital improvements or equipment repairs that are not recurring or annual or things that have to be done at short intervals. It was funded in May by voter approval in May 19th, 2009, and $450,000 was established in that reserve at that time. Next slide is prior use. One more. We've used this reserve in the past to replace the middle school gym floor. There was a lot of moisture damage. There was a roof leak. The floor was becoming, pulling up and being unstable at different places. So we replaced that floor. We replaced the bleachers in that gym as well, which were over 40 years old and a safety hazard. When they tried to pull those out, they're very heavy and they wouldn't move very well. So we did that as well. Next slide. We have November of 2019, we replaced two pumps at the main campus sewage treatment plant. The $9,000 paid for the pumps, and then our crew installed those pumps. And in August of 2020, Wales primary boiler number 1 had heavy corrosion and was rusting through at the bottom. We accessed the reserve to replace the bottom of that boiler at around $50,000. So today I'm here to ask for use of this repair reserve for two things. The first, immediate repair of the intermediate building roof. That building, that roof is scheduled to be replaced in our capital project next summer. But we've had some issues with when the wind kicks up, there's been delamination. The roof membrane's actually picking up and bubbling in spots, pulling away from the insulation underneath. Causing leaks in other places and more problems. So we are having to replace different sections of that and do repairs, tie that all back down, replace all the areas that are leaking. So we're requesting the reserve use of up to $60,000. It's being quoted to us based on time and materials, and we don't know the exact amount of that yet, but we have a not to exceed number of $60,000. And that work actually was completed about a week ago. We didn't wait to get a reserve. We were going to do it no matter what anyways, whether it was general fund money or reserve money. So that work is complete. We don't have the final bill yet though. And then on the next slide, the other thing we're looking for is replacement of a failed supervisory HVAC controller. So $8,000. This is if you go to the next slide, kind of explains what this unit does. It's a piece of equipment, but it has to be programmed. It integrates the chiller and air handlers, all the functions of the middle school building operating systems, and puts them so that we can make changes and adjustments as needed. So it's the equipment plus programming of the equipment for around $8,000. So the total, we would be looking for to pull $68,260 out of this reserve. There's a board action in this meeting, 10.4.10.6. And that would just summarize that we would access those reserves for these purposes. Any questions?
Yes, John, the repairs on the,
I don't think your mic's on.
The repairs on the middle or the II roof, the areas that we're repairing, are those going to have to be redone again?
Yes.
When we replace the roof? So it's just
it's a 1-year type repair to shore everything down that's there already. They did add some new membrane spaces and then patch things, but it's not by no means a replacement of the roof. It's a repair.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
And I don't know what the board would like, because the regular meeting doesn't start till 7, so we do have about 8 minutes. I do know this Pledge of Allegiance and speakers from the middle school are here. So it'd be up to the board if they wanted to move into that or wait till 7. I would definitely, for board discussion, wait until 7, so that makes sure all the public is signed in, so they can hear that. Wait till 7? All right, so Jane, I would recommend just having a recess for 5 minutes until 7 for the regular meeting to start.
All right, we are in recess till 7. please call this regular meeting to order. And we will start with a quick statement that next week is Red Ribbon Week. Well, that's what I've got. That's what you gave me. That's why I'm having trouble, because I'm reading last month's agenda.
That
No
makes sense.
wonder. All right. No, it's okay. I have the one from our meeting Thursday. I'll just go
Perfect.
off of that as best I
Perfect.
can. All right. So with that, welcome to all who've come to observe the meeting of the Iroquois Central School Board District's Board of Education meeting. There are two periods of recognition of guests listed on the meeting agenda. The first is for comments regarding agenda items only, and the second is for topics not on the agenda. Speakers may offer comments related to school operations and programs, but the board cannot hear personnel complaints against any individual associated with the school system. Please address these concerns to the appropriate administrator. If you wish to be recognized, please fill out the appropriate form and turn it into the district clerk. As per policy 1514, public participation at board meetings, public comment by district residents only is limited to 15 minutes total unless the board suspends the limit. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single subject unless the board also waives this limitation. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in dialogue with members of the community this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and celebrations. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be posted on the Iroquois website. And with that, we have our Pledge of Allegiance with students from where?
From Elma, we have Hannah, so she can come right on up to the stage.
Wonderful.
Oh, she wants it, you want to do it down there, Hannah? Up here? Perfect.
All right, if everybody would rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah.
Did you get a good picture?
Okay, next.
And
Next, we have
our-
a student report from the middle school, and we have students TJ Domino and Rise Robillard.
Good evening. My name is TJ Domino.
Just a second, TJ. If you guys want to come down in front and get a front view of him speaking, you can. I know what I would want as a parent. You can stand right in front by the stage and get a front view of him. No, here comes mom. I do it. Sorry, TJ, but this is what I would do for my kids.
Good evening. My name is TJ Domino, and I am in 8th grade on Team Roy Crofter at Iroquois Middle School. I'd like to talk to you today about some of the excellent things we are doing here during these trying times. One thing is how we are offered a variety of clubs and activities to participate in. I am personally involved in Teens in Action, a club focused on helping the community and their school district. Many of my classmates can join clubs and teams that they are interested in, which includes Drama Club, Fitness Club, and SGB to name a few. In fact, Teens in Action is currently doing a food drive to assist those in need in our community, as well as fundraising for our unified sports teams. Sports has been another great outlet for me and many of my classmates during COVID. This past fall, I was selected as a co-captain on the modified football team. We went undefeated during our season. This was a fun time to build long-lasting bonds with my teammates. I know many other sports teams were thankful for the opportunity to play safely during these uncertain times. Thank you, Mr. Schofield and board members, for your support and help bring back all the opportunities to be parts of teams, clubs, and school activities.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Reese Roblard, and I'm in 8th grade at Iroquois Middle School, and I am here representing Team Roy Crofter. First, let me tell you about our school's guidelines for success. They are respect, responsibility, self-discipline, and kindness. These pillars are helpful to me as I always have them in the back of my mind. They guide me to make principled decisions in school and other aspects of my life. I realize if I think about these 4 things and act accordingly, I will be setting myself up for a bright future. Beyond the guidelines for success, Iroquois Middle School has many opportunities for students to be involved. We have a wide array of sports and clubs, for instance, student government body. This group allows students to be involved with decision-making in the school. They are encouraged to suggest ideas or even plan out events such as Spirit Week and Moving Up Day. With this, students have the opportunity to act to make change in the classrooms here. In addition to all the wonderful students, there is an excellent staff here at Iroquois Middle School. The teachers are very patient and understanding. They also try to set us up for success. For example, when I do not understand a math problem or just need something clarified in social studies, I feel very comfortable reaching out to my teachers and receiving help. The teachers act as eminent role models and mentors to students throughout the middle school. I am confident when I say that I would be proud to have any of my teachers from this year or past years hand me my diploma as a senior. Overall, I will be sad when I have to go to the high school next year. One of Iroquois' mottos is once a chief, always a chief, and I feel that Iroquois Middle School is a second home to me. I know I will have been influenced for the better by Iroquois Middle School and the district as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great job. It's always great to hear directly from the students, and thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Okay, that brings us to board discussion and news worth sharing. So the first item under board discussion is the ECASB legislative survey results and legislative breakfast. It was scheduled to have Michelle talk about, but Michelle is not present. So I guess that falls to me then. We did have our legislative breakfast on Saturday, and we were able to meet with legislators from across Erie County, and we were able to share some of our major priorities. I know that Heather was there, and because she is present in the room, it might be easier for everyone to be able to hear a report from Heather.
Is this on? Yep. Okay. So I attended the breakfast, and I had a great time. I sat next to Pat Gallivan. I was able to see him amongst other legislators and members of Senate and talk to them directly about the concerns that we had as a school district. And I really liked a packet that was put together by the Erie County School Board of Associations that will be available on the website that can help us understand who our go-to people are. The legislators, the people that represent our districts, easy access to them and their contact information for addressing concerns with them about bills and things that are being proposed to be passed in relation to our favorite topic, COVID. And I'm hoping that we can distribute that URL to our school board the parents, students, anyone that's concerned about some of the decisions that are being made at the state level, county level, because we really need to redirect some of the concerns of the public away from the school board and more towards the people that can really influence some of the decisions that the state and the county are making. So it was an eye-opening experience for me. I'm glad I went. And Jane, I know that you might know when that URL will be ready for public distribution, and perhaps Doug, we can publish that on our.
Wrote it down, already put it, when you started talking, I'm like,
Okay.
ooh, great idea.
It was a really great packet. I mean, it was just amazing to see all this great information in one place, so that we can get access to people that are making these decisions. And I think that we should share it, because sometimes I think people don't know where to go. And sometimes they will come to the school board, but in reality, some of these things need to be redirected.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing we've consistently talked about here at the board when people talk to us is, thank you, we're going to tell these people, but if they could tell them themselves, that's even more powerful than us relaying the message. So having that there would just make it that much easier.
Yeah, and another thing, I'm getting more exposure to like some of the bills that are being proposed to being passed or discussed. And I didn't know this prior to probably a few weeks ago, that every single bill that's under consideration is on the New York State Senate website. So if you're concerned about a bill, a more recent one that I've heard that people are concerned about is if you're 14 years or older, you should be able to decide if you're vaccinated or not, whether it's COVID-19 or any other vaccinations. And that bill is available on the New York State Senate website. And there's a yay, I would support this, or nay, I wouldn't. That could be selected by any one of us. You put your name, you put your address, you put your contact information. There's a place for you to put public comment. There's a place for a button to email your senator about it. So I think that people need to start being aware of where we can access this type of information, so we can start pushing back on some of these maybe mandates that we don't necessarily support, or whatever the public feels should be a priority.
Yeah, and and actually I think they're here in the audience tonight, sent me a bill the other day that they saw on there and to make sure I was aware of it. And that was one I hadn't seen yet, for exactly what you're talking about, that people can go on that. And that's really where the community as a state can give that feedback directly of what they think right to their legislator. So it's nice to get this out there.
Yeah, so instead of being negative news spreader, so to speak, take action. And if there's a bill number that people are saying, oh, what about this bill? And go to this website and put your comments on it. Because they need to hear from us. And they said that during the breakfast as well, that they need to hear from the public. So
one thing that they said that I was not aware of is that they track all of the emails that they get. So even if a person doesn't receive a personal response, because they get somewhere to the tune of like 500 emails a day, but they do track what the emails are about, and they follow to see what the trends are and to see what the constituents want. So even if you don't get a personal response, you can be assured that someone on the staff of the legislator that you're emailing is logging that email in and saying exactly, what your voice is being heard, and they are tracking to see what people want. So the more we email them and tell them what we want, the better it is. And, it does not go on deaf ears, which I was encouraged by.
yeah, and on that website too, I mean, the bill in question about the 14-year-old and above, I mean, that bill was created in January 2021. The bill status is on there. It's in discussion. It's not gone any further than that. So go to the source of the truth on these websites to find out what is in progress, what's being for consideration.
Another thing that's interesting about tracking bills is that you can look, and if it's only in one house or the other, it's probably not really going to go anywhere. But if you see that it's being backed by several people in both houses, then that bill has some merit, and you know, it is being seriously considered and discussed. So that's another way to look to see, is this just somebody who, you know, is trying to make one person happy, and so they created a bill and threw it out there? Or is this really something that we need to be concerned by? So you can look to see who's sponsoring it, if they have co-sponsors, and if it's being sponsored in both houses, to determine if a bill really is, you know, moving. So that was useful information as well.
Yep, and there's another button that basically says if you want to be notified of the bill, of this particular bill, and when it changes or being discussed or whatever, that notification feature is there as well. So I thought that was quite useful. I subscribed to a couple myself. But yeah, the breakfast was really good. I hope to be able to go again in the future.
I think we can arrange that.
Also, in connection to the ECASB legislative survey results, I think that we wanted to just have a statement at today's meeting about the work that we did in our work session, because there weren't public members of the community at our work session. We want to be transparent and let people know that we did sit down and fill out a survey. The survey asked us to rate from 1 being not interested or not supportive at all, to 5 being supportive of specific issues that were identified by ECASB legislative team members. And we did go through that survey and did create our ratings. And all of that information is then culminated into a report with ECASB. And I'm sure that will also be public knowledge, and people can go to the ECASB website once that survey is available. Did anybody else want to say anything about what we did in our work session? Okay, moving on then. The next item is our strategic plan task force request. This might be, again, easier if Chuck explains it, because again, he's in the room.
Yeah, we've had, as you know, Jane, quite a few meetings with our core team, and then we had our communications team, our buildings and grounds team, and our student experience team. And out of that, we did develop our strategic plan to go forward for the next 5-6 years. Tonight, we are going to be approving our strategic plan. We did have a request from the communications task force to modify their strategies and action plans. They've asked to add 7.3, which is define and staff a communications manager to oversee all communications within the district and who will contribute to the communication task force. And also 7.4 to establish a consistent logo and use guidelines for the ICS chiefs. So that's where we're at now. We've had a lot of great participation from the community in coming up with our strategic plan, and I'd like to personally thank all of those individuals for the time and effort that they put in. So I guess now we need to have a discussion on those two items, 7.3 and 7.4, should we wish to modify the plan.
As a point of clarification, I'd like to know if the two items that the task force is asking to have added have gone through the process with the core team, and is the core team aware of this request?
The core team, these were not presented to the core team. They were only presented at the work session to the Board of Education.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, we've included the core team on everything in developing our strategic plan. And I think it's only right that they be included for any changes that we're going to make to the strategic plan before we do add or subtract any items from that plan. So I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on that, but I mean, that's the procedure that we've been following, you know, right along. And I would hate at this point in time, after all of the hard work and effort that our community members and our faculty and staff and Board of Education members, parents have put in this, to sidestep the process at this point in time. So I would suggest that we bring this back to the core team and present it to them so that they can have their input in it. The core team is the focus point for the strategic plan, gathering all of the information from all of the other teams and disseminating it. So my suggestion, Jane, at this point in time would be to leave the strategic plan as is. The strategic plan is a living, breathing document. It can be modified at any point in time. So I think we would be better served to present it to the core team first, and then follow up afterwards.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to make sure the board was aware of, because even though it's a 5-year plan, that it's a living document. So this can definitely be presented to the core team. They can have another meeting, they can review it and recommend that it be added or modified and added to the strategic plan. And then at December, January, whenever, the board could accept the modified strategic plan, which I would hope would be happening as we review data and progress as we go through the plan anyway.
I like that idea because it allows us to move forward tonight to actually vote on the strategic plan as it is, knowing that it can be modified. We don't have to make a decision about these two items particularly tonight, and we can still move forward with our strategic plan.
I would agree with that.
And if that does happen, the communications group did get together and present a modified letter that would be sent, and they had great resources. They did a fabulous job about to the newspapers and getting on the listserv and mailings and different releases. So therefore, tomorrow, that's what Nora and I would focus on. Well, part of the day, we have some other things to do too, about starting to get that information out to everyone. And then mailings out, and maybe get postings in different areas, I'll say the library, post offices, so that people with URL could take a quick snapshot of it. It's how the letter was designed to have out there.
So, Mr. Speck, since you're sitting there, does it look like everybody on the board that's present tonight is in agreement with us about not moving forward to change the current strategic plan?
Yes, they're in agreement.
Okay, very good. So that brings us to the New York State test to stay memo.
Yeah, and the test, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say that one of the things that bugs me the most about this test to stay is that it makes it sound like to the public that we're saying, let's test the students or faculty members or whoever every day, and if they test negative, they get to stay in school, and that is actually not the case. So just right off the bat, the terminology makes it confusing. So I know Mr. Schofield has more to say about it, and I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Yeah, so, it's kind of interesting. Would this be in the board discussion or in the superintendent's report? It was actually selected to be in the board discussion just because some board members were asking about it. But, you know, as the board has said consistently, I'm informing the board about the information I have and making decisions based on the state regulations of what to do with COVID. So I just want to make sure everyone's still clear of what's happening, because there was some confusion with that last year. So this memo came out October 27th, and I'm just going to highlight some points in it and this is from the New York State Department of Health. And in it, it said the local health departments are entirely responsible for deciding whether to adopt any of the following practices. Because there were a few in here, but we're only going to focus on the test to stay one. So New York State Department of Health turned it over to the local Department of Health. Why I point that out is because Governor Hochul, yesterday or the day before, I apologize, but it was this week, was videotaped, did do a presentation of where she's saying she is in support of the test to stay for schools. And she said that in that statement, she said local school districts should be able to decide on that. That is not the case. She misspoke. I don't think it was intentional, so I'm not blaming her for anything, because this memo clearly states it goes to the local health departments for them to decide whether to adopt the following practices. So under the test to stay, it said at this time, the New York State Department of Health does not recommend test to stay. However, if local health departments choose to allow test to stay to occur in schools within their jurisdiction, New York State encourages them to ensure the following. I'll pause there for a minute, because it's interesting that the State Department of Health does not recommend it, yet the governor says she's in favor of it. So I'm kind of curious if the local, or if New York State Department of Health will come out with a second memo based on those comments. So these items that they want to be considered by the local health departments considers equity, including actions to follow up on transmission and other factors deemed essential. So C is the one that scares me, other factors deemed essential, because that pretty much says local health departments can make decisions, and now you'll have each county making different decisions. So that would create inequity in itself around the state. Number 2 is the daily test must be conducted and the results received before the school day begins. 3 is a mechanism to ensure that the test is done correctly. 4, exposed person who is allowed to remain in school through, and the test to stay is referred to as TTS, must be quarantined outside of the school instruction academic periods. So with that leads the question as to what would the local Department of Health say about after-school athletics, clubs, performing arts, if anything was happening after school, because of how this is written. I don't think this is a final document. Well, this is a final document, but I don't think it's the final ending choice on it, because again, it was turned over to the local health department. So what is happening now is there's a meeting this Friday where the superintendents are getting together to make sure we're all in consensus or have the same parallel ideas. It's one of the things that Erie Niagara School Superintendents Association wrote a letter in favor of, have supported, or were written down supporting it. There was a meeting with the Department of Health earlier this week, so we're going to be briefed on what they had to say about it. And it really comes down to logistics of how it would happen if it's implemented, is one of the concerns, because in the state memo, it said the state won't fund for the testing kits, how they're doing for a lot of the other testing. So therefore, who would be funding that, which gets into part of the equity. Just the resources at the school. Could nurses take over this? Well, if you have this week we're not doing very well. We have a lot of cases of COVID, so there is close contacts with that. You get to a volume of, could they even manage that? So then what would be the resources in the state? I personally have some ideas. I think that would take care of it. But I want to see what my peers have to say, see if it would work in their districts too. Not that we have to be identical, but we should be similar. And what this would mean is every day the students would have to test before coming to school. It would not be for students with COVID. It would only be for close contacts. Then if they were negative, they would be in school for instruction that day. And then they would have to do the same thing the next day for 7 days. And after 7 days, you actually fall into another part of this memo where it's testing out of quarantine, which we're not going to get into at this point, because I just want to focus on what it means to test to stay in the schools. The good news in this is you can use an antigen testing which are those are the quicker tests that are more readily available than the PCR tests. So that is one good thing it says in here, that you could use the rapid test rather than having to wait days, because right there, even the time period of waiting, by the time you get it, is the next day or 2 days later. So how would that work? So that's the update I have on that right now, and it actually changed from what I was planning to say Monday till today based on information I had last night. Any questions from the board about any of this?
I do have a question, actually. You had mentioned that we would be allowed to use the rapid test, but who's paying for that? Because I had an interesting conversation with the superintendent from another school and learned that the county has actually received money to manage all of the COVID things, but it seems to me like we spend a lot of our time talking about what our school nurses, our school administrators, especially our superintendent, are doing. It seems like we're doing about 85% of the work that's supposed to be falling under the county. It's like the school district is now working for the county. Who's paying for all of this? I'd like to see my superintendent be able to do his job instead of having to manage COVID cases.
Yeah, I would too, especially with this week. I think I had, I think my week's been COVID, a couple superintendent hearings, and getting ready for the board meeting. So there's my Friday memo for you guys of what I've done this week. But you actually, what you mentioned is actually my idea of what it is the county did receive this money. I forget how many millions it was. I want to say 13 comes to my mind, but please don't quote me on that. Get a fact rather than just my memory. And what the state or what the county did is they used that for surveillance testing and proximal. We actually had a great idea. We worked with the Department of Health, if you remember from a previous board meeting. They submitted how we wanted to do it in conjunction with them to the state. The state refused it. They said, nope, you had to use it for something else. So they have to apply to the state of how to do it. I think that would be a great use for this. The surveillance and proximal testing of what we're using here at school is non-existent. Parents were not interested in it. They think we're doing a good job. They believe as parents that they're doing a great job having surveillance of their children, which I believe and I support them in that, and it's their right. So therefore, I think this would be a great use of those funds. I think other superintendents might agree with me from the few I've talked to. It's just with the mass, and then would the county agree, and if the county agrees, when they apply for this change to the state, would the state agree to let them use the funds for this? I think it would be a great thing, because this is, we talk about, the state talks about, we talk about having students have the ability to stay in school. There's funding out there for testing. It would just all parallel. We have assigned people from an outside organization of nurses. It is the Buffalo, I forget the next two names, but that are in communication that would come in and take care of this for us and take care of it for the parents. So I'm very interested as to how that Friday meeting will go. So probably my Friday memo will come out a little later Friday, because I'll probably have a little summary of what I learned in there, or at least the direction that we would be going to the board with that.
Hey, Doug, I do have one question also, and it has to do with the test out of quarantine. What is the Erie County Health Department following the New York State Department of Health guidelines for test out of quarantine, which throws it back to the CDC recommendations?
Yeah, right now there is no testing out of quarantine in, I'll say New York State, with one caveat, that it was put to the local Department of Health. So there might be a local Department of Health in some county I don't know about currently that is doing it, but in this area, I don't know of any county that is having this test out of quarantine. That is different than the TTS.
Right.
Test to stay, because test to stay is directly for how to stay in school.
Right.
Testing out of quarantine would not allow you to stay in school. It just ends your quarantine period after 7 days rather than 10 days. So that's where you could go to outside activities outside your house. Actually, if you were to do the test to stay in school, just by completing that,
We
you
should
would
never
naturally,
fall.
that individual would naturally fall into test out of quarantine, how I'm interpreting it. So that would actually be an added benefit to having that resource for the families here.
And Doug, if we, because every day that goes by where a kid that's healthy is at home
Yes.
and not having, proper school environment, it's a day that it's lost. And, as we approach the flu season, I think that we may see more and more people, students that are healthy at home. So like, if you had to give us like a rough guesstimate, and real rough, because I know that you haven't discussed it with the other superintendents.
All right.
What would we be looking at as far as when we could maybe see this being implemented?
I don't think the question really falls down to superintendents. I think it falls down to Erie County Department of Health. And when I look at the director of that and comments they've made, that's where I really think the question comes into, will our local Department of Health say it's okay for schools to move forward with this? And then what support are they willing to give us in it? If they give us no support, that's going to be a much larger lift. We really don't have funding for this because we can't use the state funding for it, as they said. Then they would kind of look to fall on parents where they could do some type of home kit where they would take pictures of it or something. We would have to determine what is the proper way to demonstrate it was done to the right person for the right amount of time to get the result. We came up with a method for the teachers that have to, or I shouldn't say teachers, for the staff that have to do the weekly testing because they're unvaccinated. And that became a little complicated, so we were able to get to a different spot with that, but the state is providing test kits for that, and that's going to be the real question of what is Erie County willing to do to support schools in this. And we do spend a lot of time every day with administration, contact tracing, going through names, sending it to us. They send me back names for verification. I had 3 or 4 emails today and at least 1, if not 2 phone calls from the Department of Health checking on different information that was sent to them. I keep trying to figure out how to send it to someone else, so I am not doing it. But with the things changing and different things happening, it keeps coming back to me, unfortunately. I don't mind doing it. It takes time, but we're doing very well, I think, because of that. We have huge consistency here, and we're able to proceed through it quite quickly and efficiently. But it is a big time. It is a big time demand on individuals, and I don't say just me, just everybody.
That goes back to the point I was trying to make about, the county has been given all this money. Supposedly, some of it is supposed to be used for contact tracing, and yet here we are, the school district is doing contact tracing for the county.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I would think with the amount of millions they were given, they could almost have signed an individual to every district or every school, or
Sure.
per every population, you get so many assistants in your district that would have helped with this.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that if you talk to just about any healthcare worker these days, and they will say that what makes the most sense is as soon as you realize that you've been exposed, you wait the 3 to 5 day incubation, then you test on day 5, and if your test is negative and you have no symptoms, you should be good to go, and you can resume normal activities, especially for those of us who are vaccinated. So why are we not doing that with our students where, if they got, exposed on a weekend, a couple of days of the weekend, they've missed so much less school. That seems like and that's following the science that other areas are following. So why is it that there's different science for school districts than there is for the rest of the population? I don't understand it.
And what you highlight is exactly what's happening in other states, based on, how they're interpreting the CDC guidance for the states.
Yeah. Well, I think somebody needs to get their act together and come up with consistency.
So any other questions? You'll be getting an update as I learn more on Friday.
Okay,
All right.
so that brings us to technology platforms.
Great, so,
Go ahead. I'll let
sorry,
you
I'm
take it.
ready to go tonight. One reason I'm so excited, because the Director of Technology, Ken Piasante, is sitting right here. So if I say something wrong, I know he's gonna grab the mic and correct me. Right, Ken? All right, got a nod yes on that one already. So what this is the board received an email, and it's something that technology had been working on for a while, and it has to do with availability of Google. And when I say the availability of Google, that's where I think really a good definition has to be put forth, because every day when I go onto the internet, I go in through Google. But what do you mean by Google? So when I look at it in terms of why we put the word platforms here, is what is the school district, what is it using as its accounts for people in the platform? So I broke it into 3 buckets. The first bucket is, where do you put your file? So you make a file, you make some type of typing document, I'll call it, and you have this digital typing document. Where do you put it? Well, we use Office 365, so we put it in OneDrive. If we were a Google district, you would put it in the Google Drive. That's my own personal document. That's what I made. With that, that's basically the same thing. It's just where you're storing the document. And what happened years ago when we went to Office 365, we worked with the teachers, and they selected which platform we were going to, because they're the ones that are using it. And there was lots of discussions. Ken was involved in those, and even the people who, at least one of the people who wrote you a letter, was involved in that too. In his letter, he said he doesn't want to switch platforms. He wants to keep storing these typed documents or data spreadsheets in that same one, in this platform. Doesn't mean we can't look in the future and see if we want to switch, if there's a reason to switch, to store our files somewhere else. But during that time, the people who had their files in there needed to transfer them over into 365. Because before that, we were all over the place. There was no way to monitor it, no way to make things secure. You got to worry about data breaches. We got to make sure student information is secure. And so therefore, that's the first bucket, this, where do you store your own personal files? The second bucket I'll call is professional groups. These are where you share a document. So I create a document, and you guys, wow, you did a great job. I'd like to use that. So I email it to you. And if I email it to you as a Google Doc, that's the type part, that's what they call it, Google Doc, right? Get that right? Okay, good. Whereas in Office 365, it's a Word document. And when I send it to you, you need to open it. And if you're in Office 365, you need to open it in Word. And what was discovered is we were receiving stuff, myself included. Actually, Heidi in my office just received one the other day, and she's like, I can't open it. Very frustrating, because you're at this gathering, professionals were there. It could be like teachers pay teachers, and it's just sharing the documents. Well, what that is when we called up, this one came from BOCES, we said, well, they didn't click a button when they shared it that allows you to download as Word. So what Ken is developing is an email actually teachers can use. So if they receive a document like that, they send it to the person and it says, please click this so I can open it. And everyone that I have personally done it with, and a lot of them that Ken has experienced with, immediately change it and allow it to be open. Does that mean everyone's doing it? We don't know. And this is what Ken is looking in for the second bucket is, how extent is this? Because if we have half our teachers getting shared documents that they can't get, we should do something different. We should find a way, and it might cost money, to allow the teachers to get to these professional communities and get the documents they need. If 99% of the people click the button and you can download it as Word, then we have to decide, is that 1% worth, and what's the dollar figure to be able to get to it? The third bucket is resources. So if there's a resource that Google has, and I'll go with Google Maps, everyone's heard of that. And with Google Maps, and you want to get to this resource in Google Maps and use it, but you have to have an account to use it, and there's no other way to use it, that would be another reason I would say, if this is a professional thing that would be move us forward with instruction and development, then we should probably look at money for it. But the question is, what is there and how many people? So we've already done this at the elementary level for different reading programs. One teacher likes this one program, but everyone else likes this other program. Well, we go with the other program. We don't do it just for one person. Now, if it costs $1, sure, we would do it. But again, what's your return on investment? How many people are wanting? So what Ken is taking over right now, or what Ken is venturing down, is how many people, to what extent. I talked to the union about it. Ken has met with the union to find out how many teachers are there. I talked with administration. Other than one group in the high school, which is the same group that wrote you the letter, no one else has come to any administrator saying that they have trouble. Doesn't mean they're not having trouble. So the administrators are going to start to look into that. Ken's going to reach out to people. He's going to send out the letter. There was one that was causing us a lot of trouble for that one department in the high school. It's called New Visions. Ken is working with BOCES trying to get them to fix that. That's the one that's causing trouble. I know Mary Jo spent a lot of time downloading documents from it as he's worked through this. So hopefully Ken will have some good news for us soon of what he's working through with BOCES.
Well, actually,
Well, go ahead, Ken's already interrupted me. I did something wrong. Might have to use a mic though. I can't hear you well.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. For New Visions, which is used primarily with the Social Studies Department, I was recently able to get, basically there's 2 points of that website, the resources that the teacher used and the assessments. So 99% of that website is the resources, and we were able to figure out a way to have all those teachers access those resources so that they can click on file, download them as Word, and then modify them as they need to. The next part is the assessments. Basically, the company keeps those behind a Google account, invite only, so that students don't access them. So with that, I have another meeting on December 3rd, and they're going to come up with a solution for us so that we can access those assessments.
And there's a lot of other school districts in Office 365 having the same problem. I think I saw in one email.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. This is, sorry for feedback. They're doing this for like all non-Google schools. So they realize that they have to do this, not just for Iroquois, but all non-Google schools basically across New York State.
So we're kind of leading this to have that done. And that testing portion, when I said Dr. Duda downloaded all the information, it was the assessments I think she downloaded for everyone. So they do have all the assessments already.
Yep.
It would be any changes they had over the past couple months that they might not have, but that's what we're doing to support the teachers, move forward with, creating the environment where students can continue to learn, progress, and be an innovative leader in all of this.
So basically what I'm hearing now is we have a workaround for the difficulties we were experiencing, or some of the difficulties some of the teachers were experiencing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. Yes, it's really about those like online resources, and a lot of stuff might be in Google, and it's just about that communication with whoever created that resource, that it needs to be sent to us, not requiring a sign.
And I think that's where I get, so I want to just interrupt here for a minute, is what bucket are we talking about? Because when you say workaround, I think that's more of the third bucket, where something that requires a Google login.
Exactly.
Whereas the second bucket, where they just have to click a button, it's not a workaround. When we talk about how you use technology in the future in the workplace, this is what the kids should be learning. Because when they get to a job and they're on a certain platform and someone sends them something and they can't open it, they can't look at the boss and say, hey, I'm sorry, I couldn't open it, I couldn't do my job. They need to reach out to the person that sent it to them and say, here's what you need to do so I can open it. Hey, I'm having trouble with this. And that's what the teachers should learn, and that is what the students need to learn, because any company you go to, they have a single platform. This is the first bucket that they work on, because that's what they're able to monitor with their staff in an effective way to make sure there's not breaches, there's not transgressions, that people aren't sending inappropriate material. I mean, we could run 2 platforms here, run them parallel, but then we need more technology staff because now we have to monitor 2 platforms. I don't think, from what I'm hearing, and this by no means am I done, because Ken isn't done, I can't be done until he does the work, that the teachers are looking to switch platforms. They're looking to have this access for bucket 2 and bucket 3.
So this may not make me popular with you, Mr. Schofield, but I'm going to say it anyway. We implemented this program a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago? if,
More than
actually
that.
maybe even longer, more than that.
Yeah.
I think I had read it was 2015.
Technology changes as fast as COVID rules, so, I'm not opposed to taking a serious look at whether we should be running 2 platforms, because there are so many platforms out there, I don't think 2 are unreasonable.
Right, and that's, and you're exactly right, and that's what part of what Ken is doing.
Yeah, so, you know, if you're finding as you move along through, the investigation that you're doing on these different platforms, that it turns out that when we have our high schoolers hit high school and Google becomes the better platform, then, you know, maybe we should be looking at seeing where we can find the money in the budget to run a second platform. And maybe it's not for the entire district. Maybe it's only for high school if the high schoolers are the only ones having the problem. But I do think that we've been doing this program long enough now that it probably is time to take a serious look at what's working, what's not, and finding, you know, solutions that could include having a second platform.
Yeah, and you actually said something there that I hadn't thought about, maybe Ken did, because as they move from kindergarten up through, is there a point where they should maybe switch from one platform to another? And that's where, you know, Ken, what my goal is for Ken is, because with the budget process coming up and their monetary value, you know, could we put together money and just throw it at it right now? We probably could. It would hit how much money goes to reserves and everything. But I would rather make a decision based on facts. So as we move towards the budget process and we look at how much money is put toward technology, so I would hope, and by the end of December, early January, when we're doing that, and then John would be getting the information to build into the budget, here would be the backup documentation of what Ken would be putting together from the technology department exactly with that. And again, we got, you know, you got the email, and the one individual talked about platform in there and saying he is not interested in switching platforms at all. But maybe he's the one that wrote, but he's all by himself and other people are interested. Have you heard any of that, Ken?
No, in my discussions with teachers, it's been mainly accessing online resources that they're using from, you know, the internet. As far as like a full platform switch, people generally are happy with OneNote and Teams in that platform. I haven't had any, you know, full requests to switch platforms in my discussion. It's mainly about that, as Doug referred to it as bucket 1 and bucket 2.
Yeah. But as you meet with him, and, you know, and he Ken's very good about getting representatives from each level and getting together. So therefore, as he explores this, that's definitely something we'll look at.
Yep, definitely.
Does that answer everyone's question?
In the meantime, what is happening with the students currently in these classes where we are having to find workarounds? You know, is it affecting what they're learning today, tomorrow, yesterday? Is this, you know, similar to when the pens weren't working and students were completely missing out on an opportunity to have a better program? You know, are we stifling something in their education currently?
Ken, do you have an answer for that? I mean, I know
yeah,
what I would say.
So the teachers that I have worked with, it's not extending to the students. This has been just resources that the teachers are looking to use. It's not, you know, looking to use Google Classroom or Google Docs with the students. We have a sharing platform for that. It's more about the resources that the teachers were trying to access in their own personal OneDrives or in their own personal Google Drives, or what they found on the internet. So with that being said, any Google resources that they have, we have found that ability now to give them access, and all the teachers that I have worked with that have voiced their difficulties, we have, they do have access to those resources now.
Okay, so it's not affecting students directly, and we do have time to figure out what we want to do.
Right, and that's, you know, and I was going to say something similar. I was going to say it's not impacting students and the material they're learning. what it was impacting, and may still be that we haven't discovered yet, is the teachers' resource they're using to teach that concept. So they might have to spend a little more work because they were planning on using X. It's not, they can't use that, so now they have to develop Y to get to the same point. What I have Ken doing is when a teacher has a concern, goes, helps them with that concern, and then with a day or two after, they go back to the teacher and say, how is that working? Is it still working? Because sometimes when you're in front of somebody, it works great, and then some filter or something catches up to you and creates a problem. And that was one of the things that happened recently, is everything was working closer to perfect. I don't want to ever say perfect. And then there was a switch in the filter, if I'm right, Ken, and then that caused a trickle-down effect. In fact, I was talking to one teacher the other day, and he said, well, my neighbor can't do it, but I can do it. I don't get why. And I said, oh, there's probably a filter that's working its way through. And about 2 days later, he sent me an email. Yep, filter hit me. And so I immediately called Ken, and Ken went over and worked with him on that. And actually found some other stuff and was able to make changes that helped everyone. Did I do okay with that, Ken?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
All right.
So by no means are we done, but any teacher listening at home, I hope what you're hearing in here is contact Tenon Technology if you're not being able to get to where you want. And I'm constantly, and I should say I am, but also Dr. Dudek is constantly following up with. I did a lot of eyes there, but I have to include Dr. Dudek because she is working very closely with Ken on all this to make sure people are getting the resources that they need. Make it easier on them to teach, because then they can spend more time focused on students. And that's all I had for there.
Okay. That brings us to the roundtable discussion. We're looking at the community roundtable being set for March 2nd. Refresh my memory, Nora, was that before a board meeting? Or is that the March?
March 16th is the board meeting one.
Okay, so community roundtable on March 2nd, the faculty and staff roundtable on March 16th, and then a student roundtable on February 16th or 17th. And the reason why we have that with two different dates is because I wanted to run something past the board. Came up with an idea, a collaborative idea, it wasn't just mine, but it was out of a discussion, that instead of having a student roundtable like we've done traditionally, that instead making us more available to a larger group of students by setting up a table in the middle school and in the high school cafeteria during the lunch periods, and having the students come up and visit with board members at the table there during lunch periods. So what do you guys think?
Personally, I do like that idea, Jane. It seems that the last few roundtables that we've had with students, over time we get fewer and fewer students. The first few that we had were fantastic. It seems now we're usually just getting the kids from the participation in government class. So I really like the idea of, being able to talk with the students in an informal setting and a place that's comfortable for them. So I think it would be a good change.
And just out of curiosity, for the previous student roundtables that we've had, what age groups? Is it just high school students or?
We had done just high school students in the past. We would expand this to the middle school too.
Okay.
This year.
Yeah, and for the roundtables, for people that are newer, we not always have all board members being able to show up. So, I mean, you could even split up, or a couple go to the middle school, a couple go to the high school, and then you compare notes afterwards.
What do you think, Bob?
We were assigned buildings, right?
Yep, everyone's assigned a building. We typically, in the elementary, I mean, if someone wanted to go there and talk to kids in elementary, that actually, it's always interesting what they have to say too. I really enjoy talking to students, and I have a student cabinet. I had it the other day, and we had invited a guest in, the high school principal. And when he walked out, he said that was one of the best things he's ever had. They came in, they talked about different programs, they're having different concerns in areas. The National Honor Society, the process for that. And not only did they listen to the concerns, but then there was some brainstorming of possible solutions of how things could work. Not that decisions were made there, because I go back and include other staff and individuals, but it is really interesting well, here's the problem, how would you solve it? What would you do different? And to hear their answers, and they have great answers. I've always enjoyed listening to them.
Jane, the consensus of those that are present here is we like the idea of the cafeteria for the high school and middle school.
All right, well, let's set that up, and I believe that if we were gonna do that, it was gonna be on February 17th. Is that correct, Nora?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 17th is a Thursday. No?
We'll get that information out to everyone.
No, February 17th is Thursday. Okay. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to bring up during board discussion? Okay, then let's move on to the superintendent report.
So the next thing is the COVID update. With that, I got to point out there's significant increases happening since October. So at the end of October, that week was 2, the day before was, or the week before was 4, the week before was 5. Starting in November, the first week was 13, the week after that was 9, and this week we are already up to Wednesday up to 19 cases of COVID. As we go on, there seems to be more staff members, adults that this is happening to. Not sure quite what the change is. We are paralleling in Erie County of what's happening in Erie County. It could be more people inside. It could have been during Halloween, people got together, and then it went to the small group who then transferred it out. It is paralleling what happened last year. So I would hope within a week it starts to come down. That's about what happened last year with this, as this changed. What I also want to point out with COVID is, I got an email today about people not wearing masks and having a concern at events. And they were talking about inside after school events. And masks are required at those. So if people are not wearing masks, and I thank them for telling me, I immediately called one of the people in the building that should have been overseeing it and made them aware of it, that the chaperones, whoever was there, needs to be a little more enforcement of making sure people are wearing masks. Why I bring this up is we have winter sports coming online. And with winter sports coming online, what do we do for that? And there were some rumors going around, so it's great. I had a board meeting tonight to address it. And when I look around Erie County, there are some schools that are being very open with how many people are coming into the athletics with no spacing at all. I don't think that's really prudent to do at this point, but I still think it's important. We have to look at why are we doing things. So I still think it's important for parents to be able to come and watch their kids. We will be live streaming, but what we're doing is the same thing. We're paralleling what we did for the performing arts, where we're looking at the capacity of the bleachers. And then the athletic director was working with a high school administrator, and I walked over there and gave my 2 cents too about here are the bleachers, how many people would fit. We're looking, don't quote me on this because we're not done. There's final numbers. They're doing a final count. But like 3 or 4 guests for every athlete that's participating, because we figure their parents, grandparents could get in there then. For visiting would be 2, and that would still leave enough room for 50 to 70 students to come in and watch their friends. And that's what they're trying to work on, this balance of numbers of what would work. So there could be representatives of the family coming in, plus friends coming in another manner. Now, a friend could give, a couple of their guests, we'll call them, that 3 or 4 to their friends, and then other friends could be in the audience. Again, that would be up to the athlete and the family of what's going on. But they're working on those final numbers. When that will come out, I will give it out to the board Friday. Hopefully it will be this Friday because I know there's some stuff going on next week I was told that I would have it by then, and then I would do it in my Monday message, so everyone in the community is exactly aware of it. And again, that might change for performing arts and for athletics as things go on, depending on what's happening. But I want you to know it's going to be different here than some of the other schools. And I say some of the other schools because other schools are doing exactly what we're doing. It all depends on where you're going, who you're competing against. Because I did steal this idea from another school. I was really struggling with what would work right. And I saw what another school put out because I had the athletic director survey the other schools. And we saw them, we're like, oh, that's a good one. And so that was great. The other question I've been getting a few emails on is about parent-teacher conferences, about, hey, why can't we come in to meet with the teacher one-on-one in the classroom? And I have to, again, look at the intent of things. And the intent is a private communication between the parent and the teacher of where their child is at the elementary level. So do you need to be in person for that communication to take place? And the answer is no. It might be nicer. I mean, I am a person who likes face-to-face. If you email me, I'll probably call you. If you call me, I'll probably walk over and talk to you in person. That's just who I am. And so I really understand where they're coming from. But if we're having all these cases come in and I have all these people sitting in a room, even if it's 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart from a staff member, and one of them comes down with COVID, and then that staff member comes down with COVID, and that staff member was by other people in the faculty room, I could have a trickle-down effect. And right now, I can tell you, we are barely holding on with staffing. John, thank you. He rode the bus the other day as a transportation attendant because, earlier he said, how are we doing in transportation? I said, we're barely holding on. Well, we weren't holding on this week. Transportation is not holding on. They had some people that were out due to the testing and requirements and quarantining. And so they're struggling right now. So thank you, John. I know the students really enjoyed you. I know that people in I don't know how many compliments I got for John for riding and helping out over there. So he made some new friends. Staffing with subs and everything, we are hurting in buildings. When there's staff out and the number that are out, and then if there's quarantining and a few get hit, it really is causing a lot of stress in the buildings, and administrators are going into classrooms and watching classes. So that's a frustrating part about COVID, but that's what I have for the COVID update. Capital project. So really what we've been working on right now is at Marilla, we're looking to get the solar panels on. And right now it's still held up in SED for some approval. Everything's out there. You can see it in the parking lot. We're just waiting for that SED to give its green stamp so we can move forward. Across the road, I put in my Monday message that they're done for the winter. They're still going to be doing some small work, trying to get drainage and things over there, so they're not completely done. I just didn't want people to expect updates of video updates on the website. What they did run into there, and you should see on the next board meeting, is they ran into soils that were, what are they called? Unsuitable soil. And what that means for unsuitable soil is if you were to drive over it, it's not like driving on a pavement, it's like driving on a sponge. It kind of like a waterbed. And with that, if you were to construct on it and as things move, you're going to get cracks coming up through it. So the question I had is, why didn't you find this ahead of time? Why didn't we build that into the bid? If we had built it into the bid, we would have done the whole area. We had to build in, going down another foot of stone in the whole area. And then that still might not have been right because they might have gone down that foot and still unsuitable. So what was built into the bid was a price, if this was to happen, of what it would cost to go down another foot and to bring in the stone. So it was already defined the amount of money it would be. The construction company does not make the decision. So they just can't say, ooh, it's unsuitable here. Let's do some more work. We actually have other firms, geotech people that are hired on. We have campus management, which goes over there and manages them. And they're the ones who supervise and say, this is unsuitable. Not the construction company. They do the rolling, and then they have these groups come in and look. That group does not make any more money for however much unsuitable soil they find. They just take on more work for monitoring what's happening. So they're paid a set rate. Obviously, bringing in more stone, we have to pay for that, and digging it out, we have to pay for that. And so all in all, what did they find over there? I'll say approximately a quarter of the area was this unsuitable soil to a tune of about $111,000. Well, the exact number I'm probably within a few $1,000s, because I added it at the next meeting, but I wanted people to understand why when we did core samples, you wouldn't see that, because you would dig down into it and you would see all the different layers and say, oh, that's all nice soil going down, but you don't see how it's connected horizontally. So literally it's covered, it's buried, and you have to dig down and find it. And it'd be much like a wall. If you dig into a wall, well, where's this pipe? Where'd this pipe come from? Or, wow, why is there asbestos behind this? Because they had something in the past they had no longer documented. Are there any questions on that? Okay.
No, yeah.
I know your question. Yes, it's covered under contingency.
No, yeah, I just.
So it was budgeted for.
I just want to make it clear that we're not spending an additional $111,000.
Correct.
This is part of the contingency that's built into the capital project.
Yep.
Just to take care of things like this.
And that was a huge conversation we had with the board of how much do you have in that construction contingency? And that's why the construction management company was so adamant, we need this percentage here. We can't lower it down because things like this happen. And when the voters approve the $19.5 million, that's it. We cannot spend a penny more. Doesn't matter what we discover, what we find at all. This is it. That's it. So we will not spend over that dollar amount. It's illegal and we won't do it. Recognitions. Went to the play, great play. I really enjoyed it because a lot of times it had some politics involved in it, if you know the play at all. And I always get concerned when I see that. But the way this play was written, where it had both parties and it really highlighted the pressures that go on and both parties ended up doing the same thing. It wasn't saying one was better at the other. It was really a commentary on how it works. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. It didn't take sides. So that was great. Athletics, just switching to it. So great job to everyone in that. Really, really enjoyed it. Cross country, we have 2 individuals that were going to states. Golf, we have 2 golfers qualified for ECIC champions. The swim team finished 7th overall in ECIC, and we sent 4 swimmers to sectional with 2 top 10 finishes. Cheerleading, they finished the ECIC champions and regional competition and finished 3rd overall. Girls soccer, 2nd place in ECIC Division II, Section 6 Class A1 champions and Class A runner-up. Field hockey placed 2nd in ECI Division II and Class B runner-up. Boys soccer finished 7th overall in ECIC Division II. Boys volleyball finished 6th overall in ECIC Division III, finished 10th overall in Class B2. Girls volleyball finished 6th overall in ECIC Division II, finished 2nd overall in Class B1. Tennis, we sent 2 singles and 2 double players to ECIC champions, and the football team was division champion. So great job to all the teams, and I look forward to getting the athletic scholarships for the teams because so many of them also make that, so that is great.
Excellent. Congratulations, Paul.
Just a couple other updates. The IFA Veterans Day run that I ran, and I didn't embarrass myself too much.
I knew you could do it.
It was very well run, and it was nice to see the people coming out and supporting our veterans. I also went to the ITAC meet and greet last night at the Boys and Girls Club, and that was very well run. Eddie did a very good job. Chris was there as well, so I had a nice chat with him. And lastly, to support the unified teams and show Sean Lauber that the school supports their initiatives, I decided to do the polar plunge, which is December 3rd. So I'm going with him and his athletes to do that.
I'd buy a wetsuit.
So yeah, but a lot of really great stuff going on in the district. So.
Awesome. And I do want to let everyone know, everyone at home watching, it probably won't affect you, but people who come here, we did move here through the number of people. So next month, we said, it's been a couple board meetings now, we're going to move back to our traditional because it has better cameras. It's better to be seen at home. It picks up voices better. So we are going to move back to the STEM room, which is really where board meetings typically happen. Just want to make sure the board knows. So if anyone has any concerns, they can let me know. That's it. I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Speck, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you to run our recognition of guests. It'll be easier and less time consuming with somebody in the room.
Sure, not a problem. Okay. We do have two guests who would like to be recognized. First, we have Karen Booker.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Taryn Booker. I have 3 kids in the district. I know that I've spoken plenty of times, so I'm sure you guys know who I am. I guess I just wanted to talk today on several different things that I'm disappointed on. I'm disappointed that it's been nearly 2 years and this is where we're still at with COVID. Our children are still masked and further mandates for them are looming, i.e. vaccine mandates. I know that at the beginning of the meeting, it was mentioned that we need to redirect concerns to legislators. The thing is that we do by hundreds of thousands. Larger entities such as schools coming together have a much bigger pull than individuals. We don't get the airtime or oftentimes we do get censored or shut down. Just look at the Williamsville school districts last week. When the schools came together, the issue for no mask breaks was dropped. When it comes down to it, the politicians voting on these issues have not been listening. Take a look back at the removal of religious exemptions in 2019 or Cuomo throughout the pandemic. This is why we've been begging the schools to stand up for us. I'm disappointed that after 3 months, we are no closer at having an answer on the resolution for a test to stay at school being presented to the state. I'm disappointed that my daughter had to quarantine this week due to a close contact. The test to stay at home would have helped us. My daughter tested negative, yet she is forced to miss her first orchestra concert and is so upset. I'm disappointed that kids aren't allowed to play with their friends on the playground, even just because they're not in the same class. And I'm extremely disappointed and somewhat disgusted that some of the middle schoolers sit on the dirty gym floor to eat their lunch. Think sneakers, walking on public bathrooms, walking on your lunch table sounds appetizing. I know it's definitely not sanitary. We've got CARES Act money. Couldn't we use that for TV trays or proper seating for students? I know none of this is easy for you guys, but I have promised to speak up for the kids as long as I have to and need to, and I will always do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Linda Transky.
She had to leave.
She had to leave. Okay, Jane, that was all.
Just so you know, Linda can always email, I know she knows this, but she can always email me and I can pass it along to the board of what she wanted to say if she would like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that brings us to the agenda, the consensus agenda items. Is there any discussion on any of these items?
I think John went over in his hearing the greatest point there. And, you know, congratulations to the people that were looking to get appointed, and thank you for all the donations. That's great, especially the one for the middle school drama club of $5,000 from an anonymous donor.
That's very nice. Thank you to whoever that is. Okay. And this does include in approving our strategic plan, correct?
That's correct.
That is in here. All right. So if there's no discussion, I will go ahead and ask for a motion to, let's see. Well, first, is there a request to withdraw any specific items?
No.
And is there a request to add any specific items to our agenda?
Yes. I would.
Okay.
10-4, 10-8 to the agenda.
Oh, yes, I see that. I'm supposed to ask for a motion to add 10-4 to 10-8 to the consensus agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Chuck.
Second.
Second, Louise.
Okay, Louise. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion carries. That's the end item. And then finally, a request to approve the consensus agenda items 10.2 through 10.4.10.8.
So move Louise.
Can I have a second?
Second, Chuck.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. That brings us to item 11. You get there? The superintendent recommends the appointment of Robert Berry as volunteer wrestler coach for the 2021-2022 school year. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, Heather.
Other seconds? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Just for discussion,
Yeah.
I'm assuming Bob will be abstaining from this because it is for his position. I just wanted the public to be aware of why he's abstaining from it. Not that he doesn't like the guy.
You looked in the mirror and said no. All in favor, it's aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? And I believe that that makes it so the motion carries still, correct?
Correct.
Was it not on this? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Bob. Do we have a recognition of guests for any topic?
No.
All right, do we need an executive session?
No.
All right, then I'm asking for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So move.
Second?
Heather. Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Jane. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
And thank you, everyone that was attending virtually.